Hey again, everybody. Welcome to another installment of the George H. Thomas Universal Pillar Tool. I made some good progress last night and today, and I wanted to show that to you. Just finished the kind of mind-numbing task of degreeing, not actually putting degree marks on there, but scribing lines for degree marks on the table for the pillar tool. And you can see this little this is exactly the same scribing device that I made in scribing the lines on the rotary table that I showed you earlier. So I've just finished. I've got all 360 degrees. I have this large rotary table here that I used, carefully centered it, of course, and I put a 0 0 on my DRO, and then I moved the x-axis off, obviously, far enough so that the scriber would clear, and then engage the table by a couple of thousandths. So I've just scribed the 360 lines around there for the degrees. I don't know if I'll ever use that, but I figured, hey, I might as well invest a couple of hours and make that happen. Let me set up the camera over here. Now, let's see if I can take this out. Show you. I don't know how well that'll show up, but it's a piece of 1/4 inch drill rod that I bent and ground, and I sharpened it, and then I heat treated. You can see the heat treating marks, and I sharpened it. I sharpened it again on a whetstone prior to using for this purpose. So it's still pretty sharp. So it did a nice job, I think. And let me go ahead and unbolt the table and show you what the table itself looks like. As you'll recall, in a prior installment, I had described where I'd Loctited the table to the 3/4 inch drill rod shaft, and I wanted to let the Loctite dry at least overnight. I ended up letting it dry for several days because I got busy at work and didn't have time to come out here in the evenings. So this is a larger, over here. Okay, here we go. Move the table out of the way. Here we go. Now, so this is just freshly from the scribe lines. Came out pretty good. I don't know if you can see that or not. Let me put the flashlight on it. So that came out pretty good. And I left a little room at the top. I'm going to use 3/32 inch number stamps to stamp the degrees in there for every 10 degrees. But it came out pretty good. There's the Loctite. You might be able to see a little film of the Loctite right there where my finger is. And what I did today before I did this, I took, it only is about 15 thousandths oversized. I put it in the lathe in a 5C collet chuck, and I turned it, came across this way, and then I did take 10 thousandths off the top face, and it was not a problem with interrupted cut. I was a little bit concerned about that, and then I used a file, or actually I put a little chamfer in the top edge, and I put this notch. It's a 1/16 of an inch deep and 3/32 of an inch tall little notch in the bottom. I think they have that for the vernier scale that they talk about in the book. So I'm not sure I'll ever make the vernier scale, but just kind of reason I'm going into detail about all this is, like, when you're making something like this and you're not sure, well, I don't know if I'll ever need that, you might as well take the extra hour or two if you're gonna, it's kind of Ben Franklin, if you're gonna make it right. So take the time and put it in, and make the thing just how you'd like it, so that you'll have that flexibility in the future. So let me move the camera over here. And so here's the pieces. I'm going to put the table down there. Actually, let me show you something. Well, yeah, come around here. I also finished the base, and I wanted to. Here's the base with the pillar in it, and it's not a super tight fit, but when you snug down the brass, you can see in there, if you snug down the brass lug clamp in there, it tightens up really good. I don't know if you can see inside there, but what I did, instead of drilling this and boring it all the way through 3/4 of an inch, I went ahead and left the stub on the bottom, and I threaded that 3/4 16. So anyway, I appreciate the suggestion. One of the viewers, subscribers to the channel, suggested that would provide another mounting point, and I got to thinking about it, and like, hey, I could always cut it off if it's inconvenient, but for now it will be a nice mounting point. So I can bolt it in from the bottom here, and I can also have little 1/4 inch bolts up here to keep it from rotating. So that's the base. In order to, I think I've covered some of this before, but I did the threading last night, and in order to get that done, what I did was while I was boring it out, I was holding it in the 3-jaw this way, like as though my fingers were the jaws of the chuck. So the first thing I did was to turn down the top part here symmetrical, so that I could flip it around and put it in the 3-jaw when I got done boring. And I already had the little center drill area in the base, so that I could use the live center to turn the threads. So I hope that makes sense. Anyway, so there's the base. It's basically complete. The pillar is complete, and the table, except for having the numbers stamped on it, it's complete as well. So that's everything I wanted to accomplish on Saturday. This is the other cool thing. Let me show you. So having that 3/4 inch stub there, I can mount that in the base, and there's some pictures in the book where they show using an arm to hold the pillar over here and do something else, like if you're doing heavy duty stamping. So I just think that's pretty cool. The flexibility of this machine, device, whatever you want to call it. So the base is done. It just needs to be painted now. The pillar, and just tightening that up brings the brass over and clamps it in. After I got done boring it out, I took the brass out and I put it in the lathe, and I turned off about a 1/16 of an inch, so there's some slack, so it pulls shut, if you know what I mean, and it'll tighten up on the pillar itself. So basically, that brings us up to speed on. One other thing. Did I mention that I took a finish cut of about 15 thousandths off the tabletop, and it was an interrupted cut with the carbide, and it came out it was fine. There was taking that small of a cut really was not an issue, was not a problem whatsoever. Okay, so anyway, that leaves the arms that I can start machining those. So I think I will get after those tomorrow, and at least get them machined flat, top and bottom, and parallel, and down to 1.5 inches. It won't be too much material to take off of them. I don't know if you can see this still, but I'll take those off and then get them basically machined to the rough shape, and then I can start marking them out. So that'll be a good place to leave off. And then once they're marked out, then the next thing to do is put the brass clamp pads in there on all 3 of them, and the locking pins that hold the brass clamp pads, and then I can bore them in. I think what I'm going to use for the boring technique is to build a platform that I can use in the mill vise. I'll set this down. So it was talked about in one of the articles that I referenced. They showed like a 3/4 inch, or a 3/8 inch thick steel base that you bolt the arms to, and then you can bore them out. So that's kind of what I have in mind. I'll talk about that in more detail as I get closer, to set up and doing that. So Anyway, I hope that's interesting to everybody, and thanks for watching. Thanks for the great comments. I appreciate it. I'm sorry I forget your name, the person that suggested leaving the little stub tail on the bottom of the base here. But it was a great idea, and like I said, I mean, once it's there, heck, it'll make a nice thing for mounting, and if it ever got in the way, I could just lop it off, be no big deal. So, cool idea. Thanks again for the suggestion. I love the comments from the viewers, and I appreciate that very much. So please, share your ideas, and that's what this is all about. Let's have some fun and make some cool projects. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll keep you posted.